Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We will start in just a few minutes. Gonna wait for a few people to join us. Hi, everybody. We're gonna hold off just a minute or two, and then we'll go ahead and start. Just to give everybody an opportunity to chime in. So I'm excited about this evening. We're gonna have a good time. Thank you all for joining us, those that are with us right now. Please allow StreamYard, give them permission to show your name. Otherwise, we won't know who's here. That's the only way we can actually see your name if you're joining us. So we'll just wait a couple minutes. Thank you to everyone. Good evening, Melody Austin has joined us. Thank you for joining us. Just a minute or two. I want to give people a minute or two to join. So are you having a great day, Shatnese?
I am. It's been an extremely busy day, jam-packed meetings, and I conducted training on customer service. And so it's been a very, very busy day, but good day. How about yourself?
Very busy. It's winter break. I was going to say spring, but it's winter break in Comcast. So
I was telling someone not long ago that it seems like the kids are actually never in school. Like they're out of school.
Breaks. Yeah, there are more breaks here, I must admit.
I don't remember that many breaks when I was in school. Like we were always in school.
Yeah, I agree. So it is 7:02 p.m. And maybe I just another minute, if that's okay with you. We're here on time. We're just giving everybody an opportunity to join us. So I'm not sure how many people. Doesn't matter. This is recorded, so if anybody misses any of this is going to be recorded and you can see it on our Facebook page. Hello, Tamiko. Tamiko has joined us. Hi, Tamiko. Yes, thank you for joining us, everyone. Got a couple people watching. 7:02, I'm going to give it just a few more seconds and I will officially start and welcome you and introduce you and all that good stuff. I don't want anybody to miss that part. So we'll just wait a couple seconds. Again, thank you, everyone. Those who are joining us, please give us a comment. Let us know you're there. Allow StreamYard to actually have access. We can see your name on our end. Otherwise, because we're not on a Facebook platform, we won't be able to see your name. But if you allow them, that just means we'll be able to see your name and I can address you by your name if you have a question, or at least give you credit for your comment. And Shatnese will know who's asking. So it is time. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So thank you, everyone, for joining us, taking time out of your evening to visit us and listen to us and join us. I'm going to introduce our guest right now. I'm your host, first of all. I'm Tanya Hawley. I am your host with HR Knowledge Source. I am a marketing consultant there. I'm so excited to have my team member and colleague, Ms. Shatnese Reese. Shatnese will be answering a lot of questions for you, giving you some great tips this evening on celebrating diversity and Black history. And Shatnese is a senior HR consultant with HR Knowledge Source with over 20 years of experience. So you are very knowledgeable. So you guys are very lucky to have her, giving some great knowledge tonight. Has worked in many, many industries, including banking, retail, higher education, and many more. And she's coaching is her expertise. She does a lot of coaching, has a lot of experience in that. But tonight, as I said, she's going to talk about diversity, celebrating diversity in the workplace, especially during Black History Month, which is what we're in right now. We thought that would be appropriate. As you can see, we're dressed for the occasion to celebrate Black History Month, but in diversity in general. So without further ado, welcome Shatnese, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. Hello to everyone who's watching. As Tanya stated, my name is Shatnese Reese, and I'm a senior HR consultant with HRKS, and I'm excited about the topic in terms of diversity, Black History Month, as well as other events that companies can recognize and celebrate throughout the year.
Great, thank you. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to start with some questions, and for all those joining us, if you have any questions, feel free to type them, post them and I will read them to Shatnez, and we'll be happy to answer that. If you, by chance, are watching this after this has been live and, and watching the recording, feel free to still ask questions because we'll come back and view those, and Shatnez can still respond to your questions on the post or individually if you like. Okay, so please keep that in mind if you're watching the recording. So first, in today's social climate, how can companies and managers celebrate diversity without excluding others? Can you touch on that for me, Shatnez, please?
Yes. And I think first we have to identify what exactly is diversity. So diversity is not just simply what you see on the outside. Diversity can be in terms of diversity of thought, diversity in terms of education. Hometown can actually serve as diversity, as well as race and gender, age, socioeconomic background. All of those different aspects of ourselves are considered to be aspects of diversity. So Tanya, if you think about an iceberg, and so the tip of the iceberg, that's essentially what people can see on the outside, but then under the water is the massive part of the iceberg, and that also is diversity, and oftentimes it's what people don't see. And so it's important that organizations really think about their workforce and their employees, and how can we celebrate not just simply the differences, but also the similarities. Oftentimes when you start celebrating various aspects about different employees, people will begin to see, wow, I didn't realize that we had that in common. Or, oh, wow, you like that football team as well? Me too. And that tends to foster greater communication and engagement, and essentially you're celebrating diversity. So while it can be a delicate line to tread in terms of looking at where people are from and various aspects of who they are, it's absolutely important. Celebrating diversity is absolutely important.
That was awesome. I love that description. You gave such a vivid description of an iceberg and just visualization of that. I love that.
Thank you. Yes.
Great.
I don't ever want to encounter an iceberg, but you get the idea.
Okay. Kind of touched on the next question I was going to ask you as far as what steps can companies take to foster this all year round. Did you touch on that a little bit more?
Yes. So it's important for companies to encourage affinity groups. They're also called employee resource groups. And essentially what that means is it's a group that where like-minded individuals, or they share in a similar interest, they can come together and celebrate each other. And you also want to foster allies of that group. So for example, if a company decides to have a women's affinity group or employee resource group, you may actually extend it so that men can be a part of that group because they are serving as an ally. So by having affinity groups, you're really pushing it out to the employees. You really want a grassroots types of experience and response because you, as an employer, you want to be meeting a need. You don't want to simply put on programs for the sake of putting on programs. So listening to your employees, conducting focus groups and climate surveys, you will absolutely begin to understand what the needs are of your employees, especially if they feel that they're being underrepresented or not heard. And so affinity groups and employee resource groups are a great way to get started. But at least fostering and asking the question, what are we missing? And is there something that you'd like to see here that we don't automatically do on a regular basis?
Wonderful. Thank you for that. That was good. So what if, I know everyone may not be interested in this. They might not like anything about diversity. They may not be interested in learning about others. How do companies or employers address this of the people who are not supportive of this idea?
That's a great question. And, diversity, Tanya, can really still be celebrated companies will need to be very strategic in their approach. So, for example, they could have "Did you know" statements. So, during the month of February, do you know who created, in terms of some type of technology, and it may be a person of color that they can highlight. So having "Did you know" statements and strategically placed in internal employee communication that can foster just an understanding and greater appreciation of differences. So thinking about those types of statements and really targeting different things throughout the year. So, for example, March happens to be National Women's History Month. So during that month, you could say, "Did you know? Who was the first woman who did this?" Or even it may be specific to that company. Maybe they have some really stellar women who have done things within the company, and so that's celebrating diversity. So I'm a firm believer that diversity is better as you are offering it. Although I know that there is a school of thought that you need to push and be very forceful, and oftentimes people don't respond very well when things are forced or shoved. So being very subtle and definitely highlighting things through, as I stated, the "Did you know" statements. That's a great way to still celebrate diversity, but not in an intrusive way, not in a forceful, abrasive way.
Right. And I like that idea. I thought of when you said that those that have newsletters, companies, maybe there could be just statements in the newsletters that address that in a nice, subtle way, but nice way to include it.
Well, and Tanya, along those same lines, you asked, what if a company wants to celebrate diversity, but its employees don't? Conversely, if an employee wants to celebrate diversity, but its company is not, they too can, whether that's dressing in a certain way, or posting things or having things in their office or within their cubicle space. Again, being very mindful of posting policies, that companies have. But there are certain ways that people can still celebrate who they are, and not feel as if they have to leave check themselves at the door. So employees can be pretty creative and not offensive in terms of how they can celebrate who they are. And you never know, if an employee decides to be brave, there may be other employees who want to also celebrate that same facet of who they are, and then you'll have an affinity group. So
there you go.
you have people talking and sharing and connecting, and the next thing you know, you have several groups within the company. Again, it's really organic and grassroots. So,
and people might actually learn something in the process.
Absolutely, yes.
So, what are some ideas? It was a good segue from what you just said. Some ideas that companies can do or things that can be done in the workplace to celebrate. That's within their company policies or regulations. Do you have any ideas or have you experienced any?
Yes, I've been in places where they've had an international day, for example, where they walked out a space within their company and actually had booths where each of the tables represented different countries, different regions. And so employees could come and visit those booths, and either they had information or even food, like an International Food Day. Oftentimes people really enjoy that because it gives them a chance to taste authentic food from that particular region. And it allows the employees to kind of talk about it, to explain, why this particular dish is important to them, and perhaps how they prepared it, and when it's most often consumed. Maybe it's only during special holidays or specific events. So again, just fostering that communication and that dialogue. Or employees or companies may opt to go and visit an organization together.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
So, for example, May happens to be the Asian Pacific, Diversity Month. So, maybe the organization will find the company itself will find an organization that caters to that particular group, and go and volunteer. So,
Nice.
we happen to be in the Atlanta area, so there are a number of organizations and entities that service various communities, and companies can go together to, help, either build a home or feed the homeless or
Right.
serve in some way, even giving back. So if, for example, there's an HR firm and they want to offer recruiting or resume advice or reviewing, helping a certain group, that also is a way of celebrating diversity. So companies can absolutely be creative and think of some ways to connect and show that they
Yes.
are serious about diversity.
I love it. Food always works.
Yeah.
I think,
I enjoy, different types of food. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
If one day I'm going to be able to go and travel wherever I want to go just to try the food, just to try the food.
Yes, authentic, really authentic food in
Yes.
this
Yes.
area. So,
My mouth
yes,
watering.
that's awesome. But and then, like you said, there might be people right in people's employment place that are authentic to those areas, and they can cook it up.
Yes. Yes.
Spices.
And so just imagine the smells and the
Yes,
flavors and,
that's
just
a great idea.
when they decorate their tables, the colors, and it's a great
Yeah, that's a great
opportunity to
idea.
have something different.
Awesome. So, who should be responsible for actually executing diversity in a workplace? So,
Uh,
I think of HR, but there's probably other people that.
Well, surprisingly, everyone should be responsible, Tanya, in my professional opinion. But the reality is, there at least should be one person who can be held responsible and accountable to execute various ideas. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be the HR professional. It could actually be the person who's responsible for a certain affinity group or a certain employee resource group. I've worked in places before where each affinity group was responsible for carrying out their activities. And so they had a sponsor that worked or served on the executive leadership team. So that way we knew that there was buy-in from the top leadership. And that's so key. That employees sense and fully understand that upper leadership, executive leadership, from the CEO to all levels, truly believes in diversity and supports it. So by having those sponsors connected with each of the employee resource groups, that served as a liaison and to let the employees know that, hey, XYZ company, they say that they're serious about diversity. Their actions carry that out and illustrate that. So the entire company should be responsible, but having a person, as I stated, either the diversity consultant, if the company has one, and if not, then identifying someone within each of the groups or someone who has a passion. You definitely want someone who is committed to diversity. Otherwise, you'll find that they won't be done, nor will it be executed effectively.
Okay. And I just want to say to everyone, if you have questions, feel free to post them. We're here. I'm Ash Cash. Says good evening. Hello. Good evening, Ash Cash. And feel free, everyone. We go ahead and send us your questions or comments if you have any, and I'll be sure and acknowledge you. Just a couple more questions. We kind of touched on them, but so if I'm at work as an individual, Shabnise, and I want to express in some way I want to celebrate, let's say Black History Month or whatever. How can I do that in my own area without offending other people? Do you have any ideas, or can you share some tips on that and how I can celebrate myself if no one else around is doing it? If I can do it, how I can do it?
A great question. I would certainly encourage that employee just to check their employee handbook, just to make certain that there aren't any policies surrounding, posting things or sharing any information via email. Because sometimes if those things are done, other employees can become offended, and then you have an unnecessary mess on your hands, and you don't want that. So something as simple as just even wearing your attire or different garb, whether that's on if you're company has particular casual dress on Fridays, that's a great time to be able to wear something that's expressive. Again, being mindful of your employer's policies, because you don't want to necessarily wear something that may be offensive because of profane language, but for you, that may be your way of expressing your ethnicity. So again, you have to be very careful in how to do that. Or even just talking to other employees about perhaps a figure that has been important to you, or someone that you admired as you were growing up, or even someone whom you admire now that represents Black History Month. That's a great way just to kind of talk about their accomplishments or how they have impacted your life, and you're sharing that casually with people who want to hear. That's the key. You want to make certain
Right.
people
Yes.
want to hear, because if you're talking to people and you sense that they're backing away or withdrawing, that's a clear sign. Oh, that's not the right crowd, right? Or even within your cubicle or your office, as I stated earlier, in terms of posting a poster, or and Tanya, the employee may talk to their manager and say, "Hey, I'd like to just even have something over the lunch hour, where it's like a lunch and learn." Or I'd like to have a day where everybody brings, they highlight the person, a figure, a public figure that's important to them.
Right.
So just opening those lines of communication with their manager, or even talking to HR. If there's someone in HR, or if there's a designated diversity consultant, talking to that person and saying, I really want to just, celebrate who I am. And if for some reason, if that company is not as progressive, the employee may choose to take vacation day, a personal time off where they can go and visit a monument, or do some other activity, just so that they can feel as if they're celebrating. So there are a wide variety of ways that employees can celebrate while they're in a company, and if the company is choosing not to, publicly celebrate Black History Month, or any other month for that matter.
Right. Very good. I think everybody keep in mind, we don't want anyone to get fired or we're celebrating. So make sure you consult the handbook or your policies before you go and do things.
Right. I don't want you saying, well, Shatini said. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. We don't want that. But I think those are great ideas. And lastly, last thing I have to ask you is, how can a company actually measure the success of doing this, so they would, so they know if they want to continue doing it? What can they gauge it on?
That's a great question, and it will truly be individualized, if you will, or specialized per company. So, for example, a company can look at its recruitment efforts, and are they attracting women and other races across departments. So a company would have to analyze first and get a baseline of where they are, and see if the representation that they have internally actually represents, their surrounding area, their demographic area. And so looking at their recruiting efforts, that's one way. Also looking at their retention efforts. So as they're recruiting individuals and diverse individuals, is the environment conducive to actually retaining those individuals? So, here you have a company that goes all out and targets women, and is that all of the female focused career fairs and organizations that target women engineers, for example. But then once they're recruited in, the culture can't support them. So the women come in and they're like, this is not where I want to be, because the culture is not ready, and therefore you're losing people as quickly as you're bringing them in. So are you retaining? So looking at the retention efforts, again, across teams. And an employer could also look at their employee relations issues that are closely related to diversity specific items. So, are you getting complaints, harassment complaints? Are you getting again, requests because, the manager is not or is unfairly treating, all of the Black males in that particular department. So it will require some upfront effort, upfront work, but with some careful thought and some strategy, an employer can really look at where they are and where they want to be and what will be needed in order to get there. So strategy will help them execute and reach their goals. And I want to also say that as well early on when we were talking about just various events, looking at the entire year and being intentional about each of the months and trying to make sure that there's various representation. You can easily find a list of various months. As a matter of fact, diversitycentral.com has a calendar. And it goes through every month and highlights, what's happening in May, what's happening in June, August, September, October. October is National Disability Month. So if the employer is really wanting to be inclusive, that's also the other key, that you can be diverse and not be inclusive. So diversity is not just simply about getting people in, but it's about them having a seat at the table and feeling as if they are heard and understood. So.
Okay. We had a little delay, a little glitch. I think the internet was acting up a little bit, but I think we're back.
What was the last part that you heard?
No, it was just delayed. We got you. It's okay.
And I probably talked
so at least on my end,
right?
Yeah. Hopefully everybody can still hear on Facebook. Hopefully it's coming through. But thank you so much, Shani. That was great. Can you say that website again for me?
Yes. diversitycentral.com. It's a
Diversity
calendar.
Central.
And it has a Heritage Month guide. So if you
That's neat. Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, see the different months and see how they want to celebrate.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Thank you. That was some great nuggets we shared tonight. I think so.
Thank you, Tanya.
Hoping everyone enjoyed and learned something from our chat this evening. The Radical Edge of HR is what we're called, and we're here. We'll be back next month. We thank everyone for joining us. Shadanice, did you want to close with anything before I officially shut us down?
Just the one last quote from an article, Fortune article written by Barry A. Williams. Diversity gets people into the room, but inclusion keeps them there. True diversity is about more than just numbers. It must come with a heavy dose of inclusion. That means a company must be intentional about creating and fostering a culture where everyone has a seat at the table, not just entry to the room to watch as a bystander. So be intentional and make certain that people feel heard. And you're not alone. Call HR if you need some help.
That is wonderful. Thank you, Shadanice. That was great. I love that quote you ended with. I did not see any questions. I just see everyone saying good evening, and I know we were heard. I've gotten feedback on that. I was trying to make sure we covered everything.
Good.
I'm not seeing any questions. So if you all have any questions for us later on, anyone watching, as I said, if you're watching a recording, please go ahead and post them, and Shadanice or myself will make sure that it gets answered later on. Anytime, we'll still go back and review those. So thank you all for joining us. If you have any HR questions or concerns or suggestions for us, if you'd like to hear some information or get some tips on a certain subject, feel free to send those to us. You can send it to our email, clientsolutions@hrknowledgesource.com. You can also hit up this post and put a comment or a question in there. Again, we'll get that for you. Please follow us on Facebook at HRKS LLC, on Instagram, on Twitter, all the above. LinkedIn, please do follow us and share. Feel free to share this to others. We appreciate all of you. We thank you. And we'll be back next month with another great topic and great consultant. Thank you, Shadanice. You did a great job.
Thank you, Tanya. You're an awesome host.
Thank you. Everyone have a great night. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.